Well, welcome everybody, or welcome back. This is Ride the Stream with myself and my very good friend Travis. How are you doing today?
Happy that the snow is melting. Uh, that's where my mind is right now. I'm excited to talk about another episode. How are you doing?
Oh yeah, I'm doing well. We're actually supposed to be in the 80s, so we're having a little bit of a warm spell here in Arizona. Um, we're actually supposed to get up to 90 like in the next handful of days. I just can't believe it. And it's still, as at the time of recording this, it's still February. So I think we're going to have a pretty warm summer. But well, I'm glad you did not get nearly as much snow as like I'm seeing pictures of like Central Park with 20 inches of snow, just like
Yeah,
crazy. So,
yeah, we definitely got lucky being on the edge of that second storm that came through. Um, so uh happy about that.
yeah. Well, I guess we're actually here to talk about, like, I don't know, maybe falling skies or something.
Yeah,
Uh, Having a good time with that. We are on, gosh, episode 4. It's going
almost
quick,
halfway.
actually. Yeah, because first season is 10 episodes, if I remember correctly. So yeah, we're kind of this is a lot different from Lost. I mean, I miss Lost, obviously,
Yeah,
but it is kind of crazy that we're moving pretty quickly uh through the first season of Falling Skies. Lots going on. So
yeah, big time.
um, yeah, so for people that are new here, just so that you know, we do a plot summary, we discuss some of the various scenes and characters, and then we get down in the second half of our programming into the nitty-gritty. You know, who's our favorite character and who's our favorite scene. And then if we have some, questions that we have for each other. I'm a newbie to the show. I didn't watch it when it first came out. Um, I have watched the first season, so I know what's happening through the rest of season 1. Travis, I think you've watched through the first 4 seasons, maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Yeah. So, so Travis is the veteran and knows a bit more than I do. But we've had fun with that kind of structure. So we're here again.
Yeah, but I will say I haven't watched it since it came out. So when I
Oh,
get to
wow.
rewatch each episode, it is nice to have that kind of like revisiting for the first time. So
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of happenstance, but realize that this is the 15th anniversary of Falling Skies.
oh
Because I
yeah.
think it was 2011. So we're at a 15-year anniversary. So I think, I hadn't thought about that before, but I feel like it
Yeah.
so far what I'm seeing, it feels like it's holding up, you know.
Yeah.
Same with Lost, which is celebrating their 20th. 20th. Yeah. Yeah, they're like yeah, a little over 20 years. So and
Yeah.
that doesn't feel dated either. So
Yeah, it's that's even more incredible that 'cause I know the first episode of Fallen Skies, there was some of the transitions felt a little harsh,
mhm,
but it was just that first episode. So
yeah.
um everything else I feel like they've blended transitions between scenes very well and um
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, shall we get started with the plot summary and then we'll kind of fall into our usual discussion.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it.
Okay, sounds good. There was a lot that happened. It felt like this was a fast-moving episode. So I've really tried to do a plot summary that kind of like focuses in on a couple aspects of the series, of the show. And then I figured other things will, as we discuss, be pulled in. So this is really kind of one of those high level. Um, I tried not to get too bogged down with the minutia. I figured we could do that in our actual discussion. So the episode opens. Oh, and by the way, episode 4 is called Grace. Um, so just kind of pin that in your mind. The episode opens with the move of the POW Skitter. I call him Skitter A. Don't have a name for him, so or her. It's an it right now. Um, till we know more. Porter orders Weaver's group to try to communicate with the POW through a variety of interactions by members of the group with the aliens. So throughout the whole episode, we have different interactions, not just with the POW. Weaver and team learn quite a lot. For instance, Annie makes an astute observation that the alien seems to be studying the humans as much as the humans are studying the POW. While Annie tries a number of times to communicate with the POW, Harris criticizes her and takes a more visually aggressive stance via showing the POW a dead skitter. And this, I'm sure we'll dig into because we had a lot to say about Harris last week's episode. Mike, Ricky's dad, I believe that's correct. I think that it's Mike that
Yep.
is Ricky's dad. Also seeks to communicate with the POW because he is frustrated by the fact that the Skitter has become Ricky's kind of surrogate father. Yeah, because when Ricky wakes up, he doesn't even know who his father is. He kind of looks at him and it says, "Who are you?" Then looks over at the Skitter and then kind of back at Mike and says, "Father," and then falls back into unconsciousness. But it doesn't help the situation that Ricky's health has been improved by the interference of the harness. He had been plagued with like asthma or bronchitis or something, a pretty acute breathing issue. And now Ricky seems to be completely cleared of that. At least it seems like it. But with the harness off, I kind of question whether his health kind of is going to start to deteriorate. But anyway, at one point when Mike is trying to communicate with the POW, he actually shoves a gun into the mouth of the alien and discovers a soft spot in the palate of the skitter's mouth that actually stuns the alien into unconsciousness. And of course, Harris says, "Well, if you can get that close, why don't you just use the gun?" Good old Harris.
Yeah.
Tom and his group, which includes Pope, they've actually gone off. They've been ordered by Weaver to do the following: go get bikes, go get medication, then Tom can go get Ben and the rest of the kids. So Tom, understands the wisdom of Weaver's directive. So his group are headed off to a bike shop, and Pope is going because he's been to the bike shop. He said he's gotten a bike from there. Of course, he didn't say that, he had sticky fingers. Because of course Tom originally thought, "Oh, you bought a bike here?" Well, no, of course not. But anyway, on their way, they encounter a group of sleeping skitters that are hanging like bats under an overpass. Um, and they go on to the bike shop. Things happen, and Pope goes back and throws gasoline and shoots and kills all the skitters and creates kind of some chaos and some havoc. But that leads to kids in harnesses that are armed to arrive at the bike shop, and they come bearing and ready to shoot. Um, And Tom realizes that there must be a skitter nearby that is controlling the kids. And meanwhile, Scott, Uncle Scott, Anne's uncle, has asked that Matt become his little young communications officer. Because Matt has wanted to be able to do something, wanted to participate, wants to learn to fight, wants to be involved and contributing to what the Weavers group is doing. So Scott's like, well, I need a communications officer. Matt, why don't you do that? So, now he has a sense of purpose. But while they're trying to fix the radio and they're, playing and tinkering with it, they find that it spikes with static at different times. And it's actually Annie who realizes that there's a correlation between the POW's emotion spiking and that causing the radio to create a static. So she figures out that there's some sort of frequency that's going on between the two. Separately during the episode, Pope steals a motorbike and leaves a parting farewell gift to the Weavers group. He baked them fresh bread. That was so nice of him. When last did they have fresh bread? Um, Tom and Hal find common ground when Tom doles out parental advice because Tom said, has talked about how Hal has always been closer to Rebecca, and now it's like they're actually talking about their emotions, um, and they're making some connections that they didn't have prior to the invasion, which is good. Margaret reveals that she did not ever consider herself part of Pope's group, more that she was just in his vicinity. Weaver asks, well, why didn't you leave? Why did you choose us? And she says, well, every day she thought about making her escape. So that gives us a little insight to what we were talking about last week with regards to Margaret and her experiences with Pope and his group. We also learned that Tom is an optimist, if we didn't know that already. And Weaver and Hal actually are really more both in the camp of the glass is half empty. So that really brings interesting perspectives to different problem solving and what they're experiencing. And then, as mentioned at the beginning, this episode is called Grace. And Lord's the young gal who is like a pre-med student. She works with Annie um, as kind of a doctor's assistant. She brings and provides some faith-based healing, emotional healing, as well as reminding the community that they are really fortunate that they're together versus other survivors out there, and that they should be grateful. And the episode ends with the community joining hands and Lord's leading the group in a prayer. And so that's kind of high level. I mean, I still touched on as much as possible, but man,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff went on in
Yeah.
this episode. So, your initial thoughts, Travis, on this episode?
So, I wanted to ask you,
Uh-oh.
um, when they start the episode with Weaver telling Tom that Pope is going with them, did you think that it wasn't gonna go wrong or something was gonna like it just like it doesn't seem like a good idea. Uh, did you feel that way when you saw it for the first time?
Oh yeah. You know, particularly when Pope says, "Oh, I can't draw you a map. I'm horrible at drawing," and yeah, I was like, yeah, that's a total setup. He just wants to go. He wants to try and get away. Um, because even though he's out and cooking for them, he still is really under kind of house arrest. He still is a POW as well. He just gets some better treatment than the POW skitter. but yeah, oh, I knew it was something was going to happen. And then it was really interesting because when they got to that overpass and they saw the cluster of skitters that are sleeping. Yeah, did you notice how his eyes just kind of lit up like, oh boy, I'm gonna have some fun later, you know? I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be back over there to visit those skitters before the episode is out.
Yeah, and when he shifted away from the group when they were walking together, and Tom's trying to corral him back, and he said something like, I thought I smelled something. So like he was able to like
Oh, interesting. I
sense
missed that
them
one.
in some way.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just saw them out of the corner of his eye and was able to like pinpoint. Um, but when he's arguing with Tom about wanting to like get rid of him then and there, you just
Mm-hmm.
get the idea of like, even though Tom says no,
Oh yeah.
I don't think Pope had any intentions of letting that go. Um, yeah, I thought the episode overall was good. Like you said, it went by really quickly. They jammed a
Mhm.
bunch of stuff in it, like, from Margaret and Weaver's interactions, like uh uh Tom and Hal connecting, although he wanted to kind of like just some space to try to think through everything because he's still feeling guilty about Karen. And um
Yeah.
I do think finally we got a better look at Dr. Glass's character. I felt like Annie was more present in this episode, and I think
Mm-hmm.
she had pretty important role in connecting the dots between the static and the skitter, and even understanding, yes, she's described to Harris like, yes, if I had an axe, I'd want to chop his head off, but we
Yeah.
can't do that. Like, we have to behave in a way that resembles our humanity. And she tries to give the skitter water and is trying to show him pictures and finding some way to communicate. And Harris is just, man,
He's the character you like to hate. More
oh,
so than Pope, and we've had this discussion last week
yeah.
with regards to Pope and Harris comparison. Harris just does not, for a doctor who's, I, I'm struggling to find a whole lot of redeeming value in him. Um, and he really feels like he's lost a lot of his humanity and his, you know, in comparison to Annie, who he does say, well, you're just a pediatrician. But she shows a lot more humanity and gentleness and willingness to work for the greater good. And I think this is where, you know, there's interesting comparisons like Harris and Annie, how they interact with the alien, and even Mike to a degree as well, because he interacts a bit more with the alien as well. Versus then you've got Pope and Tom and their interaction. And the fact that Pope is, you know, charging forward based on his own needs and wants and desires versus Tom, who knows how to kind of bide his time, mediate the needs of everyone versus his needs as a father, and realizes that okay, I can't put my needs or my wants before everyone else because otherwise community there's chaos in community. Um, so I really liked how the show spent time in this episode, juxtapositioning between these different characters to show, to really explore those themes of community. and perhaps, the title of Grace.
Yeah.
Annie's Grace under pressure for sure, as is Tom, you know. Um, Maybe not right at the beginning when the alien looks at him like, I know who you are.
Yeah.
And Tom's like, I know who you are too. I
Yeah.
remember you.
Yeah. It shows Tom's like uh like where he's not afraid of battling the skitter now.
Mhm.
It's almost like, oh yeah, yeah, I took you down. Like
Yeah.
I know how to do that now. So there was interesting interactions, like you said, even like with Lords at the beginning, where she was praying over the pictures of the lost or the harness kids or the lost kids, and is it Jimmy?
Hmm.
He was just like nitpicking with her, like, what are you doing? Like, do you think it helps? And he was inquisitive to a degree, but he was almost questioning, like, oh, I heard you were from, Mexico.
Mexico City
Like,
or something like that.
what are you even doing in Boston? Like, you're not, it's like he was questioning whether or not she was Boston and deserved to be there. And she eventually tells him where he is, and I guess it's the neighborhood, and she's like, "Is that Boston enough for you?" Like, so I
Hmm.
just was like, man, like, that was one of the more antagonistic scenes, I think. And but again, that's just one little blip of a moment compared to like the
Yeah.
multitude of things that were happening. So it was a very interesting episode. I think they definitely filled this episode with more storylines than they had in the previous episode. So,
Yeah. I struggled putting the plot summary together, because initially, I mean, I think I have like um 2 long pages of just notes and then trying to get it, you know, down to like maybe a page for the summary. And I mean, I embellished as I went anyway. But yeah, it was a lot going on.
yeah, it's like when I was thinking about favorite or interesting scenes, there were so many things that was
Hmm.
coming across my brain where I was like, I'm just gonna have to like uh be the opposite of my normal self and be very minimalist.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I could be here all day thinking about all the little
Oh
things that
yeah,
happen. So,
yeah, definitely. Um, what did you think about what we've learned about the aliens? Because that was a big thing. Tom and Weaver kind of reconvene at the end of the day. I feel like it's like, okay, well, we're around the campfire, like if we were watching the last, okay, what did we learn today? And whereas Weaver's like thinking, oh, well, we didn't really learn anything. What are we doing? And Tom's like, no, we've learned a lot, in the day. Look at
yeah.
how much knowledge and intelligence that we've learned, just from the various parties and how they're all similarly making the same connections so that there's legitimacy to their observations and their varied experiences. Because I was thinking that would be perhaps a little challenging to determine that the POW Skitter, every time he's got like, an antagonistic experience with the humans, his, communication spikes whatever's going on in him, that it impacts the radio and what ultimately that says for what the humans can do down the road to, disrupt that communications.
Yeah.
So that's huge right there. I like how this episode was really good for giving us a bit more information. Um, I don't know. I felt a little sorry for the Skitter, honestly, even though he's he or she, it. is a different species. You can somewhat identify a sense of anachronistic humanism, I guess, in the alien. You know, there's a connection with the kids, and even though the harness kind of drugs the kids, it obviously, in at least Ricky's, instance, it actually improved his health because it sounds like he's a very sickly kid. So
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, well, hmm, you know, it's it's still, kind of a parasite and a host situation, but now it isn't so black and white, the decisions you make, you know, with regards to the aliens. Because to me, I feel like, well, the mechs are very strong, but it seems the skitters direct them. At least now we know that from the last episode. But where are they? Are the mechs, how do we kind of equate them in our own society? Mechs are military, you know, versus skitters are doctors. I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, and I think, there'll be more questions about that, you know, uh,
Yeah.
what they are. I'm also, and even though, I've watched through the rest of the season, the fact that, well, what happens to the kids that are harnessed long term? Because they've got the harness on the back, but it is becoming fusing with the child. And the skitters have somewhat human features. I mean, they've got a face, they've got two eyes,
Yeah.
a mouth, maybe ears or holes for ears or whatever. But I'm just kind of like, do the kids over time morph? Or will they always remain looking human and just have this harness on their back?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious. Um, and the reason why I'm kind of going down that route is because uh Garth Ennis wrote a one story arc called Caliban, where there's this barge that's in space. Think of like Alien, um, kind of with a mix of, you know, running into an alien spaceship and they fuse together. But as the humans are, from the cargo ship kind of learning about this alien technology, they find that this alien technology has been gathering all these other aliens. They've been learning from them, but they've also been like taking parts from them and kind of fusing or morphing some of those different characteristics. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering if Falling Skies is going to have some of that aspect. I know, getting kind of ahead of the cart, but
No, that's an
it's just kind
interesting
of
aspect to
interesting.
explore.
Yeah.
Um, because the Skitters are fascinating, and especially not knowing the hierarchy with regards to what their role is on the planet.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it does seem like maybe they are the officers leading the mech soldiers. And I thought it was really interesting. Annie said that the Skitter is afraid. Um,
Hmm.
and when Ricky puts the harness back on and starts communicating for the Skitter, I
Hmm.
I was at a loss at first trying to determine, is Ricky talking about himself at any point, or are all of those words what the Skitter is saying? Because the Skitter is saying that, like, he's going to be punished, um, and that the children are theirs. Um, and even I think the last thing Ricky says before Mike pulls off the harness is like, "Kill me."
Hmm.
And it's like I would at first I was like, "Wait, is that Ricky getting through, or is that the skitter being like, I messed up, I got captured, I'm gonna get punished, just go ahead and kill me now." Like, so
Yeah.
I was really, I don't know how you took that scene, but I definitely feel like, there's a lot more going on with maybe it's just this skitter or skitters in general where
Yeah.
it seems like there's something else going on where why would they utter those words like kill me, like, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
I was confused too because I initially thought it was Ricky speaking, but then I thought, okay, Ricky speaking, the Skitter speaking through Ricky. Yeah, and then the whole thing with the punishment and kill me, it really did seem like it could go either way. Or maybe it's almost like a shared response because maybe that's Ricky saying, "Kill me, I don't want to be in this situation," versus and the Skitter saying basically the same thing. I'm going to be punished. Well, punished is probably going to be death, so they might as well just kill him now, um, rather than him being reintegrated back into his own society and then, be punished.
Yeah.
Because obviously they can punish, and we've seen that, and this takes a very grave concern because of Hal's experience in the prior episode when they executed those kids. So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
I'm
yeah,
with you. That was quite a scene. Um, and it was very heated, so there was, high emotions. There was a lot of action. So, I mean, I think they really shot it well to leave that kind of vagueness in there, leaving us to wonder who was really talking. Was it Ricky, or was it the Skitter through Ricky, or was it a blended communication from the both of them? Because there's obviously some sort of tie. There's some sort of connective tissue there, um, through that harness.
and I even like the skitter kind of calls Harris out, like like whether or not the skitter can understand uh their language or not, he understands intent. And
Oh
like
yeah.
the first words he says is like, "You want to hurt me." And
Mhm.
Harris, he's kind of like, "Oh, well, we just want to know why you're here." Like,
Yeah.
like, so I liked how, it's not just a, you know, simple, oh, the Skitters are, you know, here to destroy us. They don't, there's no need to like connect with them and all this other jazz. And the Skitter understands Harris's stance on them. He understands what he wants to do,
Yeah.
and it was nice seeing that thrown in his face.
Well, and again, you could take that both ways with regards to what is said, well, you want to hurt us. Because of course he's the doctor that's cut the harness off. He's the one that's doing this. So yeah, if Harris really wanted to know why they're there, then he wouldn't be, doing the things that he's doing and behaving the way that he is. So I think that even has, you're trying to hurt us. All you want to do is hurt us, you know. can extend all the way back to actually removing the harness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Um, did you enjoy any humorous moments? Because there we do get a little bit of humor. Anything that stood out for you that helped to kind of ease the seriousness of this episode?
I did enjoy seeing die at the end, like high on drugs from the pain meds or after he got shot and Weaver like kind of calls him out. Is Di talking in the third person and Di's just loopy and like, yes, I am. And I, because Di is such a straight faced,
Yeah,
even cadence, and that was entertaining to watch that sequence play out.
yeah, yeah. He's a very good supportive character. He's a reliable character, and you kind of know what you're getting with him. So well, I think we need to take a little break, and then we will come back and continue our conversation as well as focus in on our favorite scene and our favorite character, which sounds like Travis, you might be on a short list this week. So, yeah,
Yeah.
but stick around so you can see how short Travis's list is.
Hey everyone, it's Travis with Red Stream. Just want to say thank you for watching this video and just here to promote our channel and want to ask one thing. If you can like, comment, or subscribe, one of those things, that would be amazing. That's all I have, and we'll get back to the conversation.
Well, welcome back to the second part of our discussion around episode 4 entitled Grace. So let's get back into it. Favorite scene.
Um, so where is my list? Um,
Mhm.
so I had initially just three.
Ooh.
And then as I was just offline for a second, I thought of another thing because you had talked about funny moments. And I
Hmm.
thought of one that I forgot about that I'm going to make my top pick. So,
Oh,
um,
okay, cool.
do you want to do you have many or did you land on one specifically?
Um, no, I didn't land on one specifically because there was just so much going on. Um, I will say I think I really liked how it's two scenes and I'll talk about them together. I like how Tom talks to Day regarding the current state of his relationship with Hal. The fact that, it's kind of rough going because Hal has lost Karen. She was taken by Ben. Um, so there's a whole lot of undercurrent around that. But, Tom is talking today about the struggles, the fact that Hal had been closer with Rebecca than with him. It always seemed like they were kind of at odds, which, I guess, well, I don't know. I can't really empathize with that or anything. I mean, I guess when I was growing up, I was closer with my dad than I was with my mom, but then I was closer with my mom after I was an adult. So I don't know. Maybe, it does kind of switch over time and you find a footing, you know, for that parental relationship. But um it helped give context to then switching over to later when Tom and Hal are talking, and the fact that Tom kind of like, well, I know you were closer to Rebecca. Rebecca probably would have said, you know, if I have to give parental advice and he tries to do it thinking that this is what his wife would have said. And Hal's like, no, she would have told me this.
Like suck it up
And
or something.
yeah, suck it up. I just like how they finally were able to kind of open up to each other. Um, and one kind of help each other, kind of, work towards finding common ground in their own relationship, but also find some uh ways of trying to kind of heal, grieve and yet heal as well, so that they're not constantly carrying around all the weight of everything that's been going on. So I
Yeah.
would say that's probably a scene that I really enjoyed, and it was a little more humorous, which I think is part of what we really needed to kind of counterbalance a lot of those very emotionally charged scenes through the rest of the episode. What about you?
Yeah. And even like I felt like last episodes, um, like where Hal was left alive, and I felt like that kind of lingered
Yeah,
into this episode by, Hal still needing space. So I definitely appreciated the more um humorous moments. And even I will say I didn't put it down, but the interaction between Hal and Tom when Hope is telling Tom, "Hey, Matt should be able to learn how to defend himself. Like you're not doing him any favors."
yeah,
And Tom's like, "Yeah, yeah, I didn't ask for your opinion." But Hal
yeah.
says he thinks Pope's right.
I know.
Um,
I was kind of like, whoa, oh, that's interesting that Hal kind of sided with Pope on that one.
and I quoted the conversation because I just thought it was a really good parent child conversation
Mm-hmm.
where Hal says, Pope has a point. And Tom responds, Matt deserves to have a childhood. When you're a
Mm-hmm.
parent, you'll understand. Hal says, me have kids, dream on.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom says, I will.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah. Yeah.
like that should be on my list, but it's one of those moments where you're just like, again, there's so many interactions like that in this episode,
Yeah.
um, where I felt like I could have had a dozen listed.
Yeah.
Um, I will say I'll go ahead and dive into the one that I will have as my top pick.
Okay.
And then I can talk about the others. But at the end, when Tom is talking with Weaver,
Mm-hmm.
and Tom is like, oh, we've learned so much more than we did. We know more than we did the day before, and we're gonna learn more, and that'll help us understand them, and you know, beat them, and and Weaver, I think he's recognizing that what Tom is saying is true, but
Mm-hmm.
he says, your optimism is starting to get a little annoying.
Yeah.
And and uh that was so great. And like understandable, especially from Weaver's standpoint where he has to give orders where people might not come back. Um
Yeah.
and when talking about, Tom was saying, Hey, I got the bikes, and now we're gonna go get the medicine, and then we'll get
Yeah.
Ben and all the other kids. And Weaver says something to the effect of, if mine were still out there, there'd be nothing on earth preventing me from going out there. And that's when he like, you know, he either says that after or before he gives him, permission granted to go search for the medicine.
Yeah.
So that way they can get the kids. And I just really appreciated the layers of the characters there where Weaver's funny in that moment, but
Mm-hmm.
also there's heartache there underneath uh, so he can understand what Tom is going through. So there was a lot there, and I really liked that moment.
Yeah. No, that is a good moment. And again, kind of going back to the earlier where Hal is in agreement with Pope, and Tom, as a parent, is just trying to protect his young son from the ravages of the alien invasion and try to give him some semblance of a normal, as much as normal childhood can be given the state of the world. And that's, you'd like to say, yes, that's commendable, but is it realistic? And, you know, um, and I think that that's what Hal was trying to also, why he was perhaps siding with Pope, is the fact that we do have to be realistic about what's going on.
Yeah,
And you don't want Matt to end up in a situation where he can't defend himself. And I think, he's got a good point there, is that, um, he needs to be able to defend himself. He also needs to feel like he's part of the community and that he's making a contribution. So it's nice that further in, Uncle Scott realizes, well, here's something that Matt can help me with. And that'll give him a sense of purpose. And he'll have his own mission, that's appropriate for his age. That's kind of outside of the norm of what a normal, it's sort of within the normal um, kid childhood, to play with a ham radio and stuff like that. So there is some sense of normalcy with regards to that.
yeah,
Yet at the same time, it's also a contribution. And he's, supervised by Uncle Scott, who's very integrated within the community, and very giving of his time, because we also saw in a prior episode where he's also teaching the kids. So he's a good mentor, and he's, I hate to say that he's like a surrogate dad, but in a way he is, because of the fact that Tom, as the second in command to the second mass, he does need to be gone quite a bit. So that's hard for Tom too, because he doesn't want to like lose sight of Matt's childhood and the things that are happening in his little world. And I think parents today could even relate to that, the fact that you got to go and do your 8 to 5 job, unless you're able to work remotely from home, or, just being able to spend more quality time with your children, because it does go fast. And I do like, and it kind of continues to solidify the ages of some of the characters, particularly Hal, Karen, Matt, the fact that these are all kids that should be in high school. They should be worried about who they're going to ask to, their prom and things like that. And even, when they're at the bike shop and Hal sees that keychain and he thinks, for Karen, and he's like, his pessimism, oh, why bother? I've
yeah,
lost her. And Tom is the one that like, no, you have to have hope. And I like that, that Tom does look at the glass half full. Like you can still have hope. And I think Annie does that too, through her gentleness, through her approach to things, um, while at the same time, leading the rally for civilian rights, but
yeah,
in a way that doesn't really buck the system as much as call out to it, like a peaceful demonstration, so to speak, or,
yeah,
things like that. Um, but yeah, I like you, I liked that scene as well. Some of the other scenes that I really liked, ones that had Annie in them as she tried to interact with the alien. She was genuinely embracing what her mission was. And the fact that even though, like you were mentioning earlier, the scene where she says, well, yeah, I'd love to kill kill the alien, but she also understands that the for the greater good of the community, she needs to try to be able to communicate with the skitter,
Yeah.
uh, and try to understand motivations and things like that. And she's the one that probably shows the most gentleness, kindness, and also following the Geneva Convention, you know, uh,
Yeah.
during warfare, and not allowing her humanity to slip away. Um, and even with Harris's slight showing his cards yet again, in many ways, the fact that what do you know? You're just a pediatrician.
Oh,
Come on,
what a
dude.
POS.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I really like scenes with Annie, and she's even aligned with Lords at the end when they she kind of like, well, she's obviously kind of mentoring to Lords. We don't really know her Lord's backstory yet, so but it seems like Annie's kind of taken her under her wing. She obviously blah blah blah. She has obviously done that with yeah, um done that with Matt as well. Like when Tom is gone, he comes back, and she's the one that tells him, "Oh, Matt has a job,"
Yeah.
so she's obviously keeping an eye. She's a nurturer. Um, she's a grounding character in this chaos that is just spiraling out of control. Um, uh, that they're experiencing. So definitely enjoyed those scenes. And, at the end where they all join hands and, they are thankful for their community. I mean, we had a similar scene like that in Lost, particularly the montages,
Yeah.
in the evening around the campfires, and people are coming together, out of, you know, trials and tribulations, and just the chaos of the situation that they're in. And I always like those kind of scenes. So
Yeah. I think it really kind of presents some unity to the
mhm,
show. Similarly to Lost, because there are a lot of moments where it is chaotic and the tensions are really high. And then scenes like that kind of like help mellow it down and really help us look at what the goal is for the show. Like with a show like Lost, they're trying to like stay alive and get rescued, and on Falling Skies, it's like uh how many hours in the day can they survive? Will their
uh-huh,
school be discovered? Will Di got shot in this episode? So it's like you ne never know what's going to happen. So I agree with you. I think the end scene really does help. Um, just it's like a boiling pot of water that's kind of just
hmm
allows to simmer back down. I'm trying to think of another. I have to say that seeing Pope with a tank of gas with some grenades attached to it, and just he tosses them at the upside down skitters. I don't know if it's. I think it's is the creativity. Is it his brashness to do what he wanted to do altogether? That was just. Um, I don't know. There's something about that scene where there's something about his character where he is useful in a way that I think maybe the second mass doesn't have. Like
hmm
he has a different experience with the Skitters, to where he's learned enough to know that they're not nocturnal, they just sleep when they can. And Tom's like, well, I guess they're like any soldier. When you have time to
Hmm.
rest, you rest.
Yep.
Um, so that scene just kind of highlighted uh Hope's ability to adapt,
Yeah.
which is something I think, you know, I know the second mass is trying to do um, on a much larger scale than what Pope had before. Um, but it just feels like he is someone that seems like his skills will be needed. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I was really sad to see him take off, but he's also one of those rebellious spirits that cannot be really contained.
yeah,
Um, and as a person who has had his own kind of squad of men, and Margaret, it's hard to be kind of pinned down. Um, and yeah, his skills are needed. It's just finding the place for him so that he feels freedom, but at the same time feels responsible for second mass. And he's not there yet, obviously, because, he disregarded, Tom's orders, and went after the skitters because at the end of the day, hey, he's going to take out as many as he can before he's taken out. That's his
yeah,
mentality. And that's a hard personality to kind of bring into the fold when they have this animalistic drive to create as much havoc as possible without regard to themselves and anybody else, you
yeah,
know. So, but yeah, I feel like he's a wealth of information because of all the risks that he's taken. He's taken the risks that Second Mass would not take given their structure. They can't take those kind of risks because it could be the downfall of the entire community.
yeah,
Uh, and so the fact that, Pope has taken those risks, they could learn from those, So he has a lot that he could uh, give to the community, but whether, you can get him off his, drive his own directive
yeah,
long enough to help Second Mass out. So, yeah.
yeah.
Sorry to see him go riding off into the sunset.
Uh, were there any other scenes that you really enjoyed?
Um, just a couple that you mentioned about Lords and Jimmy scene at the posted board with all the pictures and her connection that faith goes beyond borders, and the fact that someone can have empathy for others even though they don't know them, I think, was a strong message there. I also feel that Mike being on such a very tight string as he's trying to get answers from the skitter. Um, I don't feel like, the ending, the climactic scene where the skitter is talking through Ricky, or they're talking as a united, or yeah, united voice. They direct towards Harris. But even though Mike, did hit him in the mouth, that caused him to oh, Cleo, to be stunned and kind of, knocked unconscious. I'd like to think, and I'm just going to make a little bit of an assumption that maybe the Skitter does understand something about fathers and fatherhood on another level or whatever.
Yeah,
but I did feel a sense of, as hard as Mike was trying to keep it all together, he really, really, really wanted to communicate um, with the skitter, and the fact that he was able to keep that anger down just enough, um, in spite of everything that's happened, I thought was really powerful. Um,
Yeah.
so I think those are kind of all the kind of like favorite scenes that were kind of on my list. I kind of kept them to a minimum as well. Any others for you?
I think the sequences with the skitter and the static going back and forth was really interesting to
Hmm.
recognize that there's a connection there. Um, and then the other one is I like the escape scene from the bike shop. Just when they're trying to how do they defend themselves against harnessed kids who are shooting at them? Um, you know, and Tom is adamant, like, we're not shooting kids, like,
Yeah.
and but he understands that they're all shooting together and in the same direction. So they throw like a Molotov cocktail to divert them. Hal and Anthony escape. Um, and then, but also Tom recognizes that they're all in a group approaching, that there must be a skitter nearby controlling them.
Yeah.
So they understand that the harness kids are being controlled. It's just that
Hmm.
this episode they recognize, oh, it's like a radio signal that's doing it. So, um, yeah, and they encounter another skitter and were able to defeat it. And so, along with trying to understand the skitters, um, I felt like there's a little more comfort in the team's ability when they confront skitters. Like, okay,
Hmm.
it's not as hopeless as maybe we thought in the first episode. So,
Yeah. It really does. I don't want to say like, okay, encountering skitters is becoming old hat, but it is being more normalized as we, sees or episode one versus episode four, and their interaction and how they deal and their confidence level at being able to defeat. It makes sense, so there's definitely logic there, that they are experiencing, that is helping. Of course, the next one will be the probably the mechs, and kind of dealing with the mechs, how they'll, gain information about them,
yeah,
and how do they learn how to defeat them, and continue up, because obviously their goal is to, be an irritation to the aliens enough that they'll just leave, especially since there are other surviving communities around the world, need to, obviously there's some sort of communication going on, at least to some extent. Um, so what they're learning can be transmitted to these other groups so that, you know, the humans can start fighting back,
yeah,
and making real progress to it. So I like the pacing. I mean, I like that this episode was definitely fast. There was things going on, but we were also learning a lot, and it was logical progression of
yeah,
what they were learning and experiencing, the familiarity with the skitters now, and what to do when you see them, is making logical sense. We haven't jumped the shark, so to speak.
yeah.
Um,
Uh,
so on that note, if there aren't any other favorite scenes, um, do you have a favorite character or a short list of characters that you felt deserved discussion and mention in this part?
I did land on a favorite. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about enough of like I mentioned Tom, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've highlighted him enough. I listed the Skitter Ricky duo because I just thought that was a unique way to establish communication with
Mm-hmm.
um well I think finally getting more from Dr. Glass in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think you referenced her similarly to Kate and Lost, where she kind of is that binding force, keeping everything together. And like you mentioned earlier, she's trying to, preserve that humanity and do things in a way where, you know, they would want to be treated.
Yeah.
So I think she had a lot to do in this episode. Um, I think she's a good counter to Harris,
Mm-hmm.
um, because she's not gonna instantly, come back with a retort when she's insulted. I think she knows how to um, process that internally, maybe check that box knowing who she's communicating with. Um, and yeah, I think uh, it was good to see more of that in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Anne is my favorite as well. I feel like I'm gonna say she's Grace under pressure. And we
Nice.
really get nah. Um, and I really feel like we really got to see more of her in this episode. Like it really is kind of transitioning, particularly the fact that we do have Dr. Harris there, so we do need to have a counterbalance to, the complete asshole that he is.
Yeah.
And then see our role model, who does well, under pressure and who follows the rules and who really has the community at heart. And I think she really does. And, like you said, we've talked about how Annie is a lot like Kate. She's kind of that grounding, she's a foundational person for this community. And she also makes connections very quickly as well. But it seems natural, you know, that she's very observant, and you need people that are very observant, and takes time to process, doesn't just spew out, the first thing that, they think. She actually filters, thinks about it, thinks about the greater good and things. So she's got a moral compass that I really like, and we got to see more of that in this one. And so she's definitely my favorite character for the episode. Um, I I did have an honorable mention, and I felt like Mike, the dad, um, had some really good scenes. You could really feel the tension. I think he just had a phenomenal performance. Really kind of, I felt like he really embodied the emotions that his character needed to have to bring forth, and just keeping a rein on that anger and the explosion of violence that he was just on the precipice to dull out. And the fact that while he's reining it in, you've got Harris that is just letting it loose,
Yeah.
so you even have that juxtaposition there as well. I would say, Harris, Michael, or Mike, and then, Annie on the good end. So, it was a real interesting spectrum of study in that. And so, yeah, I would say Mike was a runner-up for me.
Yeah. No, that's a good pick. He, I mean, I think earlier in the episode, Annie's checking with Tom, you know, and she says that Mike feels awful about grabbing Ricky instead of Ben. And Tom is just like, he's just a father trying to rescue his
Mhm.
kid. Like, so I like that they put that in there. Um, so that way there's not just this blind, you know, being upset about the moment. Like Tom understands, he gets it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I like that they give that this, so far in the series that they do give reasons and logic to why the characters behave the way they do. Um, which I think really kind of grounds the show and makes it definitely more believable. And there's an authenticity about it that I'm really digging with the episodes so far.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, but we're kind of nearing the end of our second half. So definitely we invite our watchers and listeners to engage with us down in the comments down below. Um, who who was your favorite character? Did we hit your favorite character? Or was there somebody else? Or something else? And what was your favorite scene or scenes? And if you are thinking about the episode, were there themes that we missed there, or are there themes that you want to discuss further that we touched on? And you're like, hey, I'm thinking about this or that. Obviously, if you have any spoiler alerts, just kind of give a little tag there at the beginning, and then space it down a little bit so that way people are not surprised by a spoiler.
Yeah.
um, we're waiting for our first comment. I don't think we have any comments actually, but we're not here. We're here for the fun of it. That's how this ride the stream came about. But
Yeah,
if you
have fun
would
with
like,
us.
yeah. But if you totally want to communicate with us, or maybe even just leave a little alien face down in the comments so we know you were here, help us with those, algorithms, that everybody talks about on YouTube. And of course, like and subscribe. But as most of you that have been coming along on our adventure here know that we drop a new episode every Friday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, because that's where Travis is. And he's our editor. But yeah, if you feel like engaging, please do so. If not, that's okay. We just really appreciate that you've come and watched, or have us going on in the background so that you can listen to us discuss, hopefully, maybe one of the series that you really enjoyed watching back in 2011.
The list is growing.
The list is growing, exactly. But we do appreciate that you came along with us today. And definitely, we invite you to come back next week. And if you're new, thank you so much for coming along, and hope that you'll come back next week and engage with us again, or at least watch us, all the good stuff. So thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time on Ride the Stream.